Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Halsey, and I'm the event specialist here at Enterprise DB. I will be your host today for our webinar, The Need for Speed, Strategies to Modernize Your Data Center. Today's session is a joint collaboration between Enterprise DB and Nutanix Era, two companies recognized in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for operational database management systems and hyperconverged infrastructure. I'm joined by Enterprise DB's Senior Vice President of Product Development and Support, Marc Linster, and Nutanix Era's Senior Solutions Architect, Mahbub Alam, and Product Manager, Jeremy Launier. Before we get started, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded. We will be sharing the recording along with the slides after the broadcast. The lines are currently muted. If you have a question, please feel free to submit it in the question panel. We expect that the presentation will take up most of our time today, and we will allot any extra time to our Q&A. If we do not have time to address all questions, we will follow up afterwards with any attendee whose question was not answered. Now, without further ado, we will begin our presentation with Marc.
All right, thank you, Molly. Okay, so let's take the show on the road here. Agenda-wise, what we're going to do is a quick discussion of the value of Postgres. Now, obviously, me coming from one of the leading providers of Postgres, I'm a little biased, but I'll still want to share with you why I think Postgres is really a good platform to build on for your digital transformations. We'll talk a little bit about some use cases that customers are considering or working with, and the environments that they're working on. And then I'll hand it over to Jeremy and Mahbub for the part about Nutanix. Okay, so going in here, obviously, we think that Postgres is the best open source based relational database. And when you look at, let's say, the recently published Gartner Magic Quadrants, you'll see exactly the same thing, that for the last 6 years, Postgres has always been in there, in Enterprise DB Postgres, and has always been positioned as a recommendation in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. The reason why that is so important is because we're seeing more and more people who they come to Postgres because of cost and risk, but then they really stay because of productivity, innovation, and agility that they get with a platform that they can basically deploy anywhere in basically every size, and that can do by far the majority of data management workloads today. So when we talk about increasing agility, really what that means is Postgres is a great way to update your technology stack. Whether you're coming from DB2, from Oracle, from Sybase, or SQL Server, this is a great way to update the technology stack and really build on cloud-focused database technology that leverages open source innovation. Keep in mind that for the last 10 plus years, Postgres has released a new version every year and has been absolutely leading in innovations such as GIS, JSON-B, key value pair, multi-model representations, etc. So when you go to Postgres, not only do you drop your cost, but you really create a platform for innovation and much increased agility. Now, you may say, hey, if I pay less, do I have more risk? Well, that's the advantage of having enterprise-supported open source. So you have an open source-based relational database, very innovative, very reliable, but then you have a commercial provider like Enterprise DB working closely with partners like Nutanix to make sure that you have a hardened and very well supported version of Postgres that you can use to reduce your license cost, but still have exactly the same levels and quality of support that you were used to from commercial vendors. And by the way, I also run support. I think our support is actually better than many of the commercial vendors. So now, why do people come to Postgres? Well, they come to Postgres because of cost. That's undisputed, the first reason they come. And these are excerpts from an IDC study that you can get from us, and it clearly shows that that the 3-year cost of operations is significantly lower, that the payback period is very, very short, even if you're considering, let's say, the effort that needs to be undertaken for migrations. But really, what brings people to Postgres is often the legacy migration, but why they stay is the new applications, the application modernization, and the migration to the cloud. So legacy migration is often just the first step, or most of the time, actually, just the first step. And once you're on the licensing model and once you're on the platform that allows you to move, then new applications, application modernization, and then, you know, migration to the cloud, whether public cloud or private cloud, that's like the next logical step. So what are the key exciting innovation elements? Well, I was talking about JSON and JSONB, so document data models inside a relational database, geospatial data, so you have PostGIS, which I think is the much more advanced geospatial model, much more advanced than, let's say, Oracle Spatial. You have key value, but you combine all of that in the same context of ACID compliant traditional relational tables. So you have all of those elements of innovation that are coming together. And then you're saying, okay, do I combine OLTP and OLAP all in the same platform? Well, it's interesting. We did a survey of our customers, and over 60% of our customers also use Postgres for analytical applications. More than half of the customers use Postgres for transactional applications. There's a very, very large overlap between the customers that use Postgres for both type of applications. And you combine that with something that you probably already know, that it's the most standards compliant SQL engine out there. It's obviously ACID consistent. It has built-in support for foreign keys and very, very good security, etc. So you combine all of these things together with multi-model, lots of different use cases, combination of OLTP and OLAP, and then a very highly standards-based environment. You get something that is a really, really interesting platform when you start your migration away from legacy onto something that's more agile, and that then is the foundation for you move to the cloud. Now, on top of that, we added in EDB Postgres Advanced Server, we added Oracle compatibility, so that you can run your PLSQL code and your packages in Postgres. So you can migrate from Oracle to EDB Postgres Advanced Server on a private cloud, such as Nutanix. And then you get the ultimate flexibility to move to other platforms or to more advanced, more flexible platforms, and then also make the decision how much of this are you going to keep in Oracle compatible mode, how much of this are you going to move to a pure open source based Postgres. And that's what's brought EDB now, after doing this for about 15 years, to having over 4,000 customers, many of them in the Fortune 500, many of them globally in the Global 2000. And I'm working personally with quite a few of these customers. I know that they don't just use Postgres for little desktop applications. Many of them run Postgres for mission critical, very, very important applications in their business. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy to tell you all about how Nutanix can be the cloud platform to run your databases.
Yes, so Jeremy, I am handing it over to you. Let me know if you received the notification to share your screen.
I do.
All right, perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. That was a great introduction. So what I'd like to talk to you about now is how Nutanix can help with your underlying platform decisions for EDB. What Nutanix brings to the table is the freedom to run your databases on a platform that really is about providing consistent performance, resiliency and scalability of the underlying compute and storage layers, and also addressing many of the operational challenges that come with managing databases, such as backup recovery and patch management and lifecycle management of databases. And so when we think about running databases in a modern world, we tend to realize that legacy environments tend to have a lot of complexity across aging infrastructure, disparate SAN architectures, three-tiered architectures, limitations around patching processes, challenges around lopsided purchase cycles where compute are upgraded at a different frequency than storage, and as a result of that, that creates challenges around forklift upgrades and the like. We see challenges around processes in terms of lifecycle management of databases. With older infrastructure, there tends to be a lack of APIs that could be consumed in a consistent way across disparate technologies that are bundled together into integrated solutions. And likewise, we find that in many organizations, there are a lot of challenges around siloed processes due to different groups being responsible for different parts of operations, whether it be dedicated folks that are responsible for application level database management and query tuning and the like, and working through migrations from Oracle and the like, or people that are more focused on disk layouts and infrastructure tuning and getting the right kind of performance out of LUNs. And so really the challenge we see is that there's just a lot of complexity with traditional storage compute architectures, and it really is begging for a cleaner, more cloud-like way of operating databases. We also see that there are many challenges higher up the application stack, right? Challenges such as how do you maintain backup recovery SLAs around your EDB databases? How do you recover them quickly? How do you allow for sufficient time for maintenance schedules around reindexing and ETL operations and anything else that you may need to do with porting data into your EDB environment or out of your EDB environment for reporting purposes? And so, one of the challenges that frequently comes up when we talk to customers is how do they duplicate data, and how do they duplicate data efficiently in a storage efficient way, in a space efficient way, but also in a very, very time efficient way. And how do they reduce a lot of the time consuming mundane tasks that DBAs have to take every single day. So that's where Nutanix comes in. Nutanix as a whole is really about providing value around that platform. It's around creating a platform that is going to give you the type of performance you need for the most mission critical of database workloads. It's going to be scalable in nature. It's going to be scale out in nature so that it can work and act as if it's a private cloud and you can run it within your data center. And it's a value that not only looks at the underlying infrastructure aspects of the platform, but also addresses many of the operational challenges and shortcomings with running and managing databases, such as how to provision databases based on best practices, how to provision them based on standards and compliance requirements, how to introduce and introduce data governance around data flows from production environments into downstream dev test and reporting environments, particularly when you have challenges around personally identifiable data and the importance and need of being able to mask and transform data sets before they get exposed into non-production environments. So these are the sort of challenges and that Nutanix is set up to support and to help solve. And so let me just kind of quickly give you an overview. So within the Nutanix product portfolio, there's a underlying infrastructure layer, if you will. It's basically software that runs on commodity off-the-shelf hardware. We support and work with probably close to 20 different hardware vendors from everything you can possibly imagine, within an on-premises world, such as HP, Dell, Lenovo, etc. We also work with public cloud providers as well and can run on bare metal, for example, inside AWS. And really what it is providing you a converged stack of compute and storage and network security virtualization across a range of hypervisors, both traditional on-premises hypervisors like VMware and vSphere, but also KVM-based derivatives that we support and manage ourselves. And the gist of it is to provide you with a wealth of infrastructure as a service capabilities. Now, the Nutanix platform doesn't stop there. As I said, it also looks to solve a lot of the second day and lifecycle management challenges of running and operating databases. And that means exposing, a set of services that are specifically designed to simplify database management, such as how would you provision your EDB database, and how would you do it in such a way that you're baking in following all of your standards and guidelines, but also best practices. And how do you do that in a consistent way as you look to expose that to your downstream customers, or to your development teams, or to whoever else may be requesting database services. So think of the Nutanix platform as a underlying set of software and infrastructure for compute and storage, but also a set of database services that can help you streamline how you provision your databases, how you back them up, how you protect them, how you patch them, and do so in such a way that those services are exposed through both an easy-to-use GUI, CLI, and of course a RESTful API. So that if you're looking to effectively call an API and request a database and get make a request for a new database, you can use our kind of API, the Nutanix API, and within a matter of minutes get a connection string to connect to an EDB database. So that's the basic gist of it. So how does it work, right? When we think about provisioning, we think about being able to introduce standardization, and we do that through something called profiles. And it's really just a way of being able to allow you to define the standards that you want to use. There's a set of services that we offer in the platform at the top level, database level services. They're really focused around provisioning. They're focused around copy data management, which is effectively backup recovery, data cloning, data lifecycle management into downstream environments, and of course patching. And so when we think about provisioning, what we're looking at are a model where you get a platform that can work across a range of databases, including EDB. You can interact with it through a standard set of APIs. You can create and publish standard image builds of different builds of Linux with your EDB software, and publish those with version tracking, and then allow for the deployment and provisioning of complex database environments, both standalone and highly available database environments, from an API call. Right, and this is the type of API call that could be exposed in a self-service way to your downstream customers, or it could simply be used as a database management tool for your DBA team, just to make their day jobs easier. Provisioning is driven by a catalog. This is an example of some of the types of profiles that we have in the solution stack, but it basically allows you to define things like builds and versions and patch levels of different databases on different builds of Linux. It allows you to define t-shirt sizes of virtual machines that are going to be running database software. It allows you to define all the networking topology that may be necessary to support database provisioning, such as which networks may be used for production, dev, UAT, which IP ranges are going to be used, which IPAM providers are going to be consumed as a part of that process. It also allows you to capture and quantify in structured key value pairs any sort of tunable parameters that may be used to stand up and operationalize your EDB database for different types of prod and non-prod environments. So it's really about that kind of model. It's about being able to streamline provisioning, but do it in such a way that it's very much a layered approach, and it's an approach that allows you to define the standards that are going to be used for your services. We have a robust set of backup recovery SLAs, and these are really SLAs that leverage the underlying infrastructure platform. But the gist of it is these SLAs allow you to, through the platform, protect your database data in a transaction consistent way, and to be able to take advantage of the platform to take very, very space and time efficient backups of your data. Backups which can then later be used for the purposes of recovery or for the purposes of cloning data sets into downstream environments. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. In fact, we have a feature in the product that is really geared towards this. It's a feature called a time machine. And what it really is it's a nice way of being able to capture both point in time transaction consistent snapshots of a database on whatever disks that database happens to be sitting on, but also capture logs. And by doing so, we allow for a seamless API and a graphical interface for being able to recover a database to any particular point in time down to the granularity of a second, fully transaction consistent, and be able to use that for, like I said, either in-place recovery or for duplication of data. And this model works with both databases that have been created by Era through automated provisioning, as well as databases that you may have simply, EDB databases you may have simply just created out of band and have just pointed Era at after the fact. The only requirement we have is that the database has to be running along with its disks on top of the Nutanix platform. And by merit of that, we'll be able to take advantage of all the automation capabilities in the Nutanix Era platform. Now, refreshing data and cloning is an important problem that many organizations face. And, sometimes because the data sets are so large, some folks resort to ETL operations where they capture just a portion of data and they migrate that portion of data into a reporting environment or a dev test environment. But in many cases, that's really insufficient and not what the development teams are ideally looking for. In many cases, what they really want is a full copy of the data set. And although with an understanding that there may be a need to mask some aspects of the data for compliance or security or to strip out personally identifiable data. And so what we provide with Nutanix as a platform to run databases is a robust data cloning operation and capability, right, where one can leverage the time machine that I just talked about to take database consistent backups of databases and be able to manage the life cycle of the data from that database backup and be able to publish that data into any number of servers multiple times and continually refresh data based on API calls or based on scripting and whatnot. And these are refresh models that are inherently thin provisioned. So the clones that are created by this kind of platform are created next instantaneously, and they have very, very little space. So it's very common to see a situation where one may have a 10 terabyte database and clone it, 5 times for different developers, and those 5 clones may take up, maybe 100 gigs at most, based on whatever inserts or changes they may be making to those databases. So it ends up becoming a very, very powerful and very scalable way of being able to duplicate data sets without having to deal with complex ETL operations or with managing the typical churn of backup restores, constant backup restores into test environments. So last thing I'll mention to you is that there's a robust set of API capabilities in the products, as well as an audit log, which can be very useful for production environments. As an example, the whole Nutanix platform is API first, right? So whether you're talking about, infrastructure, VM, storage level API CRUD operations, or database centric API, operations, one can call a REST API, right? And the product itself has all this self-documenting through standard Swagger self-documentation, so you can see and interact with the APIs. The database layer also has a robust capability that allows you to take a complex operation that you may have walked through in a GUI and immediately turn that into a script that can be called that will directly call an API. So we make that whole process of not only simplifying database operations simple in the GUI, but we also make it really easy to take that and to be able to turn that into an automated API call. Lastly, I'll just mention 2 final things before we wrap it up and open it up for Q&A. The whole solution is geared around data compliance, around database management at scale. It's really designed for situations where you may have, 20 to hundreds or thousands of databases and are really looking for a single pane of glass to manage your databases across disparate, on-premises and public cloud environments in a hybrid model. And with that comes a full audit log that can be exported to syslog if needed. And it really is about allowing you to know exactly what's happening in the system from a database level, who's making requests, and being able to not only give you full transparency in terms of who's doing what in the system at a database level, but also give you full control over who can do what in the system. So you can define different roles and permissions, and from a control plane, you can use this type of platform to quickly create different groups of DBAs and users that have access to different database resources. So with that, I want to thank you for listening in, and I'll turn it back over to Molly, the moderator, to open up for Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much. Today it was great. Currently, we do not have any questions. Sometimes that happens. We don't always have a ton of questions. People understand the content. I'm going to give it a few seconds, see if anyone has anything that they want to ask, whether it's Nutanix or EDB based. I'll give it a couple of seconds. So it looks like today we don't have any questions rolling in, but before we end this webinar, are there any closing statements that anyone from Enterprise DB, Marc, or Nutanix era would like to mention before we jump off?
Yeah, this is
Go
Chair.
ahead.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jeremy. Go, you go.
Okay, yeah.
I can only say that I think the Nutanix platform provides an interesting cloud platform that provides great flexibility and can be a very, very good landing platform for digital transformations and take the first step to get out of restrictive hardware and configuration environments, with restrictive licensing environments, and then really create the platform for great agility.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would add that I think through a combination of EDB and a platform like Nutanix, or what it ultimately does is it allows you to be in a position to manage your database environment in a very cloud-like environment, whether that happens to be on-prem or in a public cloud, without the restrictions of a particular cloud.
A few people now have posted questions. We have a few questions coming in now. We'll start with, for Nutanix, does the DBOS server, is it across multiple clouds?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the control plane for managing and provisioning databases is currently focused on single cloud operations, but multiple cloud operations and hybrid management of databases across clouds is absolutely on our near-term roadmap.
Okay, the next question that we have is, do you have to use Unix or Linux OS while working with it?
No, I know this is a little bit away from EDB, but the Nutanix platform can work equally well with Microsoft environments and fully supports SQL Server as well as other relational databases too.
All right, wonderful. And then we have one more question that just came in, and is Nutanix appliance on the GSA contract?
Absolutely.
All righty.
In fact, probably a good 40% of all of our businesses with the U.S. federal government.
All right, wonderful. So that is all the time that we have for questions. I apologize for any questions that we are unable to get through today. We will be posting them later though. Thank you all for joining us for this webinar. We will be sharing the recording along with the slides with you as soon as possible. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.